Hey y'all, Robert, Trina, Levon, blessings. Get YouTube up. Whew. Excuse me. Okay, y'all. Whew. Gather my strength back, y'all. This just had your flashlight out looking for me. Girl, I slept just all day yesterday. My body's like recovering. Alright, okay, we live on my classes. Okay, y'all, hold on. Let me grab a little bit of water real quick. Hold on. Should have got bottled water for my friends. Oh, jeez. Okay. Alright, y'all. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. Today is September the... I don't know. Hold on. I gotta look at my book. The 20th. Yeah. September the 20th, 2021. Day 264 of year 3 of reading through the books of the law and the prophets, and of the 3-year consecutive day count. Day 933. Tomorrow we'll be here, y'all. The Tabernacles begins tomorrow. Reading Zechariah 11, 12, and 13. We should read the last chapter because it's only 14. I think it's only 14 in Zechariah. So we should just finish up Zechariah today. And we're going to pick up where we left off at in Jesus Messiah. Starting with chapter 7. On page 187. Alright, y'all. Part of my slow moving. Josiah, shalom, shalom. Okay, y'all. Let's do the Shema. I definitely feel better than I did yesterday. I can tell I'm not as stuffy. I felt it all in my head yesterday. You could probably hear it in yesterday's video. So I'm like, oh, this is horrible. So I definitely can feel that head congestion gone, you know. Okay. Alright, y'all. Remember, the Shema is found in Deuteronomy chapter 6. I'm going to start at verse 3. But remember, read full chapter. I just pulled out the meat and potatoes and the gist of it for you. Hear, therefore, O Israel, and observe to do it, that it may be well with you, and that you may increase mightily, as Yahuwah, the mighty one of our fathers, has promised us, in the land that flows with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, Yahuwah, our mighty one, he is one. And you shall love Yahuwah, your mighty one, with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words which I command you this day shall be in your heart, and you shall teach them diligently unto your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them upon the posts of your house and on your gates. And Yahuwah commanded us to do all these statutes, to fear Yahuwah, our mighty one, for our good always, that he might preserve us alive, as it is at this day. And it shall be our righteousness if we observe to do all these commandments before Yahuwah, our mighty one, as he has commanded us. Okay. Zechariah 11. Adjust my screen. Yeah. Mariah, Joy, Jerry, Milica. Is it Milica? Milica-matic. Shalom, everybody. Shalom, shalom. Okay. Zechariah chapter 11. Open the doors, Lebanon, so that fire may devour your cedar forest. Weep, you cypress trees, for all the ruined cedars. The most majestic ones have fallen. Weep, you oaks of Bashan, for the thick forests have been cut down. Listen to the wailing of the shepherds, for their rich pastures are destroyed. Hear the young lions roaring, for their thickets in the Jordan valley are ruined. Good and evil shepherds. This is what Yahuwah, my God, says. Go and care for the flock that is intended for slaughter. The buyers slaughter their sheep without remorse. The sellers say, praise the Lord. Now I am rich. Even the shepherds have no compassion for them. Likewise, I will no longer have pity on the people of the land, says Yahuwah. I will let them fall into each other's hands and into the hands of their king. They will turn the land into a wilderness, and I will not rescue them. So I cared for the flock intended for slaughter, the flock that was oppressed. Then I took 2 shepherd staff and named one Favor and the other Union. I got rid of their 3 evil shepherds in a single month. I became impatient with these sheep, and they hated me too. So I told them, I won't be your shepherd any longer. If you die, you die. If you are killed, you are killed. And let those who remain devour each other. Then I took my staff called Favor and cut it into 2, showing that I had revoked the covenant I have made with all the nations. That was the end of my covenant with them. The suffering flock was watching me, and they knew that Yahuwah was speaking through my actions. And I said to them, if you like, give me my wages, whatever I am worth, but only if you want to. So they counted out for my wages 30 pieces of silver. And Yahuwah said to me, throw it to the potter, this magnificent sum at which they valued me. So I took the 30 coins and threw them to the potter in the temple of Yahuwah. Then I took my other staff, Union, cut it into 2, showing the bond of unity between Judah and Israel was broken. Then Yahuwah said to me, go again and play the part of a worthless shepherd. This illustrates how I will give this nation a shepherd who will not care for those who are dying, nor look after the young, nor heal the injured, nor feed the healthy. Instead, this shepherd will eat the meat of the fattest sheep and tear off their hooves. What sorrow awaits this worthless shepherd who abandons the flock? The sword will cut his arm and pierce his right eye. His arm will become useless and his right eye completely blind. Next chapter, Zechariah chapter 12. Dream Sky Lover, good morning. Future deliverance for Jerusalem. This message concerning the fate of Israel came from Yahuwah. This message is from Yahuwah, who stretched out the heavens, laid the foundations of the earth, and formed the human spirit. I will make Jerusalem like an intoxicating drink that makes the nearby nations stagger when they send their enemies to besiege Jerusalem and Judah. On that day, I will make Jerusalem an immovable rock. All the nations will gather against it to try and move it, but they will only hurt themselves. On that day, says Yahuwah, I will cause every horse to panic and every rider to lose his nerve. I will watch over the people of Judah, but I will blind all the horses of their enemies. And the clans of Judah will say to themselves, the people of Jerusalem have found strength in Yahuwah, the God of heaven's armies, as their God. On that day, I will make the clans of Judah like a flame that sets a wood pile ablaze, or like a burning torch among sheaves of grain. They will burn up all the neighboring nations, right and left, while the people living in Jerusalem remain secure. Yahuwah will give victory to the rest of Judah first, before Jerusalem, so that the people of Jerusalem and the royal line of David will not have greater honor than the rest of Judah. On that day, Yahuwah will defend the people of Jerusalem. The weakest among them will be as mighty as King David, and the royal descendants will be like God, like the angel of Yahuwah who goes before them. For on that day I will begin to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem. Then I will pour out a spirit of grace and prayer on the family of David and on the people of Jerusalem. They will look on me, whom they have pierced, and mourn for him as an only son. They will grieve bitterly for him as for a firstborn son who has died. The sorrow and mourning in Jerusalem on that day will be like a great mourning for Hadad Rimmon in the valley of Megiddo. All Israel will mourn, each clan by itself, and with the husbands separate from their wives. The clan of David will mourn alone, as will the clan of Nathan, the clan of Levi, and the clan of Shimei. Each of the surviving clans from Judah will mourn separately, and with the husbands separate from their wives. Ali, Shalom. Next chapter, Zechariah chapter 13. A fountain of cleansing. On that day, a fountain will be opened for the dynasty of David and for the people of Jerusalem, a fountain to cleanse them from all their sins and impurity. And on that day, says Yahuwah, the God of heaven's armies, I will erase idol worship throughout the land, so that even the names of the idols will be forgotten. I will remove from the land both the false prophets and the spirit of impurity that came with them. If anyone continues to prophesy, his own father and mother will tell him, you must die, for you have prophesied lies in the name of Yahuwah. And as he prophesies, his own father and mother will stab him. On that day, people will be ashamed to claim the prophetic gift. No one will pretend to be a prophet by wearing prophet's clothes. He will say, I am no prophet, I'm a farmer. I began working for a farmer as a boy. And if someone asks, then what about those wounds on your chest? He will say, I was wounded at my friend's house. The scattering of the sheep. We still see a lot of this foolishness going on now. People calling themselves prophets and prophetesses, and I swear for Bob, they got all kinds of words every single day, but not everything that what the original prophets did. Because I don't want to use all my strength to talk about this today. Hold on. But prophets that Yahuwah sent only got one word for you, and it's not normally a word for everybody. It's for Yahuwah's people directly. Stop your crap. Stop the shenanigans. Get back to doing what's right. That's all the prophets ever come to say, right? Yahuwah may give them a dream or a vision to show you where you headed if you keep on your destructive path. But the only thing the prophets really got to say is repent and return to the ways of life that Yahuwah has set out for his people, right? Other than that, they ain't coming to give all these other kind of words that we see them giving today. That's what makes me like, cut that crap off. All right. The scattering of the sheep. Awake, O sword, against my shepherd, the man who is my partner, says Yahuwah, the God of heaven's armies. Strike down the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered, and I will turn against the lambs. 2/3 of the people in the land will be cut off and die, says Yahuwah, but 1/3 will be left in the land. I will bring that group through the fire and will make them pure. I will refine them like silver and purify them like gold. They will call on my name. I will say, these are my people. Then they will say, Yahuwah is our God. Last chapter for today. I know that was 3, but we're reading the last chapter of Zechariah. Since it's only 14 chapters, right? Then we'll start Malachi tomorrow. All right. Yahuwah will rule the earth. Watch for the day Yahuwah is coming. Watch for the day of Yahuwah is coming, when your possessions will be plundered right in front of you. I will gather all the nations to fight against Jerusalem. The city will be taken, the houses looted, and the women raped. Half the population will be taken into captivity, and the rest will be left among the ruins of the city. Then Yahuwah will go out to fight against those nations as he has fought in times past. On that day, his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, east of Jerusalem, and the Mount of Olives will split apart, making a wide valley running from east to west. Half of the mountain will move toward the north, and half toward the south. You will flee through this valley, for it will reach across to Azel. Yes, you will flee as you did from the earthquake in the days of King Uzziah of Judah. Then Yahuwah, my God, will come, and all his holy ones with him. On that day, the sources of light will no longer shine, yet there will be continuous day. Only Yahuwah knows how this could happen. There will be no normal day and night, for at evening time it will still be light. On that day, life-giving waters will flow out from Jerusalem, half toward the Dead Sea and half toward the Mediterranean, flowing continuously in both summer and winter. And Yahuwah will be king over all the earth. And on that day, there will be one Lord. His name alone will be worshipped. All the land of Geba, north of Judah, to Rimmon, south of Jerusalem, will become one vast plain. But Jerusalem will be raised up in its original place and will be inhabited all the way from the Benjamin gate over to the site of the old gate, then to the corner gate, and from the tower of Hananel to the king's wine presses. And Jerusalem will be filled, safe at last, never again to be cursed and destroyed. And Yahuwah will send a plague on all the nations that fought against Jerusalem. Their people will become like walking corpses, their flesh rotting away. Their eyes will rot in their sockets, and their tongues will rot in their mouth. On that day, they will be terrified, stricken by Yahuwah with great panic. It sounds like The Walking Dead, don't it? Listen to that. Zombies. I ain't saying zombies coming, but I'm just saying. I'm sure this is where they pulled some of that stuff from. If you ever watched The Walking Dead, it's a lot of scripture references in there through it. And when I had read this, after I had watched the series, I'm like, clearly this is where they pulled that from. They got the plot of it from. Listen. And Yahuwah will send a plague on all the nations that fought against Jerusalem. Their people will become like walking corpses, their flesh rotting away. Their eyes will rot in their sockets, and their tongues will rot in their mouths. On that day, they will be terrified, stricken by Yahuwah with great panic. They will fight their neighbors hand to hand. Judah too will be fighting at Jerusalem. The wealth of all the neighboring nations will be captured. Great quantities of gold and silver and fine clothing. This same plague will strike the horses, mules, camels, donkeys, and all other animals in the enemy camps. In the end, the enemies of Jerusalem who survive the plague will go up to Jerusalem each year to worship the King, Yahuwah, the God of heaven's armies, and to celebrate the Festival of Shelters, which begins tomorrow. Any nation in the world that refuses to come to Jerusalem to worship the King, Yahuwah, the God of heaven's armies, will have no rain. If the people of Egypt refuse to attend the festival, Yahuwah will punish them with the same plague that he sends on the other nations who refuse to go. Egypt and the other nations will all be punished if they don't go to celebrate the Festival of Shelters. On that day, even the harness bells of the horses will be inscribed with these words, Holy to Yahuwah. The cooking pots in the temple of Yahuwah will be as sacred as the basins used beside the altar. In fact, every cooking pot in Jerusalem and Judah will be holy to Yahuwah, the God of heaven's armies. All who come to worship will be free to use any of these pots to boil their sacrifices. And on that day, there will no longer be traitors in the temple of Yahuwah, the God of heaven's armies. And that, my beautiful people, is our reading for today. That was the rest of Zechariah, chapter 11, 12, 13, and 14. We'll start Malachi tomorrow. That's pretty short. And since we skipped over Job, Psalms, and Proverbs, we'll do it in that same order. Once we finish Malachi, we'll hit up Job, then we'll go into Psalms, and then Proverbs. And that will be about it, y'all. Okay. So let's go ahead and pull this up. Open the thing. Talay. Hallelujah. Hard head. That verse confuses me with all the tribes. Will all the tribes be living in segregation from each other? No, I don't think they'll be living in segregation, because we're going to be joined together, right? Yahuwah says that he's going to, all the separation and stuff that happens, that has happened amongst Yahuwah's people, all that's going to be done away with, right? I got to go back to the verse. I think he was talking about, hold on, let me look quick. No, I don't get that when I read that hard head. Yeah, I don't think that means that those people are going to be living in separation. Do you mean separation from the rest of the world? I'll wait for the answer. But anyway, let me go ahead and pull up Jesus Messiah, y'all. All right. Feel my strength coming back, y'all. I slept pretty much all day yesterday. My body fighting off whatever it is. It's fighting off, burning up, sweating and stuff. Like I said earlier, the congestion in my head is gone. I can definitely feel that. I can hear better. I don't feel like my ears popping. Okay, so whatever it is being burned up with my system trying to touch me. Excuse me. So, all right, y'all. We're in chapter 7 of Caesar's Messiah, the puzzle of the empty tomb. What's here? What is my metal bookmark piece? There we go. All right. Thanks, Joy. Thanks, Dream Sky Lover. Okay, y'all. The puzzle of the empty tomb. As noted by many scholars, the four Gospels each give a different time for the first visit to Je.sus' tomb, though they all agree that a character named Mary Magdalene is the first visitor. The four Gospels also contradict one another about whether Mary Magdalene is alone when she first comes to the tomb, and about how many individuals are either inside or outside the tomb when she arrives. Since I had already realized that there was nothing inadvertent in the Gospels, I wondered about the purpose of these contradictions. My efforts to answer this question led me to the discovery of another, more logical way to understand the New Testament stories of Je.sus' resurrection than I had heard of previously, that the four different versions create one story that should be read intertextually. Okay. They just can't wait, can they? Okay, right. Okay. Love you too. Alright. Keeping in mind the ancient Hebrew tradition of reading their literature intertextually, it is congruent that the Romans would use this technique for their lampoon. The puzzle is ingenious because it allows the uncritical reader who would accept the contradictions to come to the conclusion that Je.sus has indeed risen from the dead, whereas the reader who reads critically and uses logic, the cognoscity, what? Hold on, y'all. Cognoscity. Cognoscenit. Okay. Whereas the reader who reads critically and uses logic, the cognoscity, will see that the tomb is empty. This reading resolves all the contradictions between the four gospel stories and reveals that Je.sus does not rise from the dead. Rather, Mary Magdalene simply mistakes Lazarus' empty tomb for the tomb of Je.sus. This misunderstanding then sets off a comedy of errors, during which the disciples mistake one another for angels and thereby delude themselves into believing that their Messiah has risen from the dead. This combined story also completes the scornful joke I discussed in the previous chapter that since the real Messiah, Lazarus, has been eaten, his tomb is therefore empty. To understand this combined story is quite simple, requiring only that the reader think logically. The four Gospels' depictions of who visits Je.sus' empty tomb and when, The four Gospels' depiction of who visits Je.sus' empty tomb and when are as follows. Okay, so I was about to give each section from the Gospels. Okay, so it's Matthew, Mark, Luke, then John. I'm going to go through and it's going to give each account the same story but from each Gospel, right? Okay. In Matthew, this is Matthew 28, 1 through 8. In the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn toward the first day of the week, came Mary Magdalene and the other Mary to see the sepulchre. And behold, there was a great earthquake, for the angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled back the stone from the door and sat upon it. His countenance was like lightning, and his raiment white as snow. And for fear of him, the keepers did shake and became as dead men. And the angel answered and said unto the women, Fear not ye, for I know that ye seek Je.sus, which was crucified. He is not here, for he is risen, as he said. Come, see the place where the Lord lay. And go quickly and tell his disciples that he has risen from the dead. And behold, he goeth before you in Galilee. There shall ye see him. Lo, I have told you. And they departed quickly from the sepulchre with fear and great joy, and did run to bring his disciples word. Matthew 28, 1 through 8. Mark. And when the Sabbath was past, Mary Magdalene and the mother of James and Salome had bought sweet spices, and that they might come in to anoint him. Very early in the morning, the first day of the week, they came unto the sepulchre at the rising of the sun. And they said among themselves, Who shall roll us away the stone from the door of the sepulchre? And when they looked, they saw that the stone was rolled away, for it was very great. And entering into the sepulchre, they saw a young man sitting on the right side, clothed in a long white garment, and they were affrighted. And he said unto them, Be not affrighted, ye seek Je.sus of Nazareth, which was crucified. He is risen, he is not here. Behold the place where they laid him. But go your way and tell his disciples, and Peter, that he goeth before you into Galilee. There shall ye see him, as he said unto you. And they went out quickly, and fled from the sepulchre, for they trembled and were amazed. Neither said they anything to any man, for they were afraid. That's Mark 16, 1 through 8. Luke. Now upon the first day of the week, very early in the morning, they came unto the sepulchre, bringing the spices which they had prepared, and certain others with them. And they found the stone rolled away from the sepulchre. And they entered in, and found not the body of the Lord Je.sus. And it came to pass, as they were much perplexed thereabout, behold, two men stood by them in shining garments. And as they were afraid, and bowed down their faces to the earth, they said unto them, Why seek ye the living among the dead? He is not here, but is risen. Remember how he spake unto you when he was yet in Galilee, saying, The Son of Man must be delivered into the hands of sinful men, and be crucified, and the third day rise again? And they remembered his words, and returned from the sepulchre, and told all these things unto the 11, and to all the rest. It was Mary Magdalene, and Joanna, and Mary the mother of James, and the other women that were with them, which told these things unto the apostles. But these words seemed to them an idle tale, and they did not believe them. What was that? Was that a sneeze?
I was wondering the same thing.
Who was that?
Zed.
Isaiah, are you okay?
Yes.
Was that a sneeze?
Yes. Was that supposed to be a sneeze?
Go get that vitamin C and that vitamin D. Oh,
You're
buddy,
supposed to sneeze out your nose.
Go get that vitamin C and that vitamin D, Josh. Start handing them out.
Hand them out.
And get that Lysol, please. Get the Lysol and come through here. No, get the Lysol first. Isaiah?
They're trying to sneeze.
Yeah, stay right in there. Go ahead. Spray right in here in the kitchen first. In here. Come here. Come here. Let me see it. Let me see it. Thank you. Back up. Sorry, plants. Okay, now take it through there. No, I ain't playing. Spray around Isaiah. Zay, you about to take this vitamin C and this vitamin D. Go upstairs with it too, son. Thank you. Okay. I'm sorry, y'all. Alright. Shoot. Okay. He is not here, but is risen. Remember how he spake unto you when he was yet in Galilee, saying, the Son of Man must be delivered into the hands of sinful men and be crucified, and the third day rise again. And they remembered his words, and returned from the sepulchre, and told all these things unto the 11, and to all the rest. It was Mary Magdalene and Joanna, and Mary the mother of James, and the other women that were with them, which told these things unto the apostles. But these words seemed to them an idle tale, and they did not believe them. But Peter arose and ran to the tomb, and stooping down, he saw the linen clothes lying by themselves, and he departed, marveling to himself what had happened. That very day, 2 of them were going to a village named Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem, and talking with each other about all these things. Well, I just started reading this. Give me like 30 minutes, son. Go, back up.
Isaiah,
Back up, bruh.
Isaiah.
Bruh. Go, seriously, go get a vitamin C and a vitamin D. Let's go. And get a bottle of water, son.
Don't swallow the brain.
What you getting? Bananas?
I'm locking myself in here.
Look, come on. While you in there, grab some of that fruit.
Yeah, you put one in there.
Okay. But Peter arose and ran to the tomb, and stooping down, he saw the linen clothes lying by themselves, and he departed, marveling to himself what had happened. That very day, 2 of them were going to a village named Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem, and talking with each other about all these things that had happened. While they were talking and discussing together, Je.sus himself drew near and went with them, but their eyes were kept from recognizing him. And he said to them, what is this conversation which you are holding with each other as you walk? And they stood still, looking sad. Then one of them, named Cleophas, answered him, are you the only visitor to Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened there in these days? And he said to them, what things? And they said to him, concerning Je.sus of Nazareth, who was a prophet, mighty in deed and word before God and all the people, and how our chief priests and rulers delivered him up to be condemned to death and crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one to redeem Israel. Yes, and besides all this, it is now the 3rd day since this has happened. Moreover, some women of our company amazed us. They were at the tomb early in the morning and did not find his body. And they came back saying that they had even seen a vision of angels who said he was alive. Some of those who were with us went to the tomb and found it just as the woman had said, but him they did not see. Luke 24, 1 through 24. John. All right, this is John chapter 20, 1 through 15. Giving you the same version of the story with the small adjustments. The first day of the week cometh Mary Magdalene early, when it was yet dark, unto the sepulchre, and seeing the stone taken away from the sepulchre. Then she runneth, and cometh to Simon Peter and to the other disciple, whom Je.sus loved, and said unto them, they have taken away the Lord out of the sepulchre, and we know not where they have laid him. Peter therefore went forth, and that other disciple, and came to the sepulchre. So they ran both together, and the other disciple did outrun Peter, and came first to the sepulchre. And he, stooping down and looking in, saw the linen clothes lying, yet went he not in. Then cometh Simon Peter following him, and went into the sepulchre, and seeth the linen clothes lie, and the napkin that was about his head, not lying with the linen clothes, but wrapped together in a place by itself. Then went in also that other disciple, which came first to the sepulchre, and he saw and believed. For as yet they knew not the scripture, that he must rise again from the dead. Then the disciples went away again unto their own home, but Mary stood weeping outside the tomb. And as she wept, she stood to look into the tomb. And she saw two angels in white sitting where the body of Je.sus had lain, one at the head and one at the feet. They said to her, Woman, why are you weeping? She said to them, Because they have taken away my Lord, and I do not know where they have laid him. Saying this, she turned round and saw Je.sus standing, but she did not know that it was him. Je.sus said to her, Woman, why are you weeping? Whom do you seek? Supposing him to be the gardener, she said to him, Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away. It was John 20:1-15. Excuse me. My analysis revealed that these four versions were intended to be read as a single story. This combined story is divided into two halves. One half consists of the visit to the tomb described in the Gospel of John. The other consists of the visit to the tomb described in the other three Gospels. In the combined story, the individuals described in the Gospel of John meet the individuals described in the other three Gospels, and in their emotional state, the different groups mistake one another for angels. This comedy of errors causes the visitors to the empty tomb to mistakenly believe that their Messiah has risen from the dead. To see how the four versions combine into one continuous story, it is first necessary to recognize that the New Testament places the contradictory versions in one temporal stream of events, and that each version enters this shared stream of events at a different point. The sun's position in the sky places each version of the story in sequential order. John's version begins earliest, and the events progress through Matthew, Mark, and finally Luke. This can be determined as follows. In John, the first visit occurs while it is still dark. In Matthew, the first visit occurs while the sun is rising. The author specifically uses the present tense. Luke and Mark use the Greek words proi, P-R-O-I, and Bathus, B-A-T-H-U-S. And proi is reference 108, and Bathus is reference 109.
Besides not taking the vitamins.
Okay, give him a moment. He'll take them. Just wait.
He's watching TV. He's too distracted. He said no, he's not taking them.
I'll get him to take them when we come up there. When I come up there. Hold on, let me go back. Luke and Mark use the Greek words proi, which is reference 108, and Bathus, which is reference 109. Both mean early in the morning. However, in Mark, the superlative lain, L-I-A-N, which is reference 110, meaning extremely or beyond measure, is used in conjunction with proi. Notice below that in Mark, the sun has indeed risen when the visit occurs, thus creating the awkward expression, the very earliest moment in the morning after the sun had risen. Thus, Mark's version begins after Matthew's, but before Luke's. Below are the related passages in the original Greek with their English translations. Shayla, that's fine. Hey, girl, hey. All right, John 20 and verse 1. What? Okay, so he done broke verse 1 up. Okay. Bear with me. He done broke all these up using... Okay, he's using all these Greek words, but in the brackets is giving the definition of each word. Okay. Okay, so if you got the book, let me just show y'all. If you got the book, you will be able to see. Hold on, let me show it. Okay. So it's giving the verses in Greek, but in brackets, it's actually giving the English word for each of the, hey, turn it down. Each English word for the Greek. So I'm gonna skip all the Greek, but you don't just like skip through it. He's giving it to you for a reason. I might screw all this up. Okay, it's gonna sound like a bunch of gibberish. Let me just read it. Okay, John 20:1. Chill out.
Where's Josh?
He's down here. Okay. This don't say the, it's the THD, like the, D. But on the Mia first day, y'all, I'm gonna read the English. You're gonna have to get this and see what I'm talking about. But on the first day of the week, Mary the Magdalene comes early, dark, still it being to the tomb, and sees the stone taken away from the tomb. Okay, in between all of that, it's the Greek word, and it's given the English translation. Okay, Matthew 28:1. Now late on Sabbath, as the sun was dawning. Mark 16:2. And extremely early in the morning, on the first day of the week, they come to the tomb, having risen the sun. Luke 24:1. But on the first day of the week, early in the morning, they came to the tomb. All right. The relative position of the sun indicates that the 4 visits do not occur simultaneously, but rather within a sequence on the same day and within moments of one another. The first visit is the one given in John because Mary Magdalene visits Je.sus' tomb in the dark, while the other 3 visits occur either during or after sunrise. Quote, the first day of the week cometh Mary Magdalene early, when it was yet dark, unto the sepulchre, and seeth the stone taken away from the sepulchre. End quote. That's John 20:1, which we just read a bit. And they had it all broken up. Wait a minute, guys. What? Y'all stay out my refrigerator. Yeah, okay. Move. That don't mean you're going to get one. Move, boy. Quit squeezing my arm. Bye. The fact that Mary Magdalene is described as being in the dark not only establishes that this is the beginning of the combined story, it is also the start of the lampoon. In the dark, Mary sees a tomb that has had its stone moved away. Of course, in the dark, it is easy to make a mistake about whose tomb it is, especially if there is another tomb close by that also has had its stone rolled away. In fact, the Gospel of John describes just such a tomb, the tomb of Lazarus. Then J.C., deeply moved again, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay upon it. J.C. said, take away the stone. End quote. And that's John 11:38-39. It is important to note that in the New Testament, Lazarus' resurrection occurs the same week as J.C.'s burial and in the same general location. Bethany, the village where Lazarus lived, was located just outside Jerusalem on the Mount of Olives. The New Testament also states that Lazarus left behind burial clothes and a salderon, a funeral cloth used to cover the face of the corpse, exactly like those found in the tomb of J.C.
Joshua, they're not minding their business.
You shouldn't be in my refrigerator.
They're not minding their business.
So you want to do what's wrong and nobody tell on you? You shouldn't be in our refrigerator. Get these vitamins and take them. And stay out my refrigerator if I kick you out of the room. Go. Take them. And get out of here. Okay. Quote, the dead man came out, his hands and feet bound with bandages, and his face wrapped with a cloth, a salderon. J.C. said to them, unbind him and let him go. End quote. And that's John 11:44. I believe that these facts, though they have no theological significance, are included in the New Testament to allow the alert reader to understand that the tomb of Lazarus has had its stone removed, is adjacent to J.C.'s tomb, is empty at the time that J.C. is entombed, and has the same burial clothes inside as those discovered in J.C.'s tomb. In other words, the details indicate that Lazarus' tomb is parallel of J.C.'s tomb. Continuing with the version of the visit to the tomb in the Gospel of John, Mary Magdalene then informed Simon Peter and the other disciple whom Je.sus loved, meaning the Apostle John, that Je.sus' tomb has had its stone removed. However, notice below that it is not Simon Peter, but Peter and the other disciple who are then described as running to the tomb. The other disciple arrives first, but does not enter the tomb. Quote, Then she runneth and cometh to Simon Peter, and said to the other disciple whom Je.sus loved, and said unto them, They have taken away the Lord out of the sepulchre, and we know not where they have laid him. Peter therefore went forth, and the other disciple came to the sepulchre. So they ran both together, and the other disciple did outrun Peter, and came first to the sepulchre. End quote. John 20, verses 2 through 4. Oh, that was slick. I caught that. So the author, by including the odd details of the race between Peter and the other disciple, creates a moment where there is one individual outside the tomb, because for some reason, after beating Peter to the tomb, the other disciple does not enter it but only looks in. However, notice that he does inspect the inside of the tomb, so he is aware while still on the outside that the tomb that So he is aware while still on the outside of the tomb that Je.sus has risen. And he stooping down and looking in saw the linen clothes lying, yet he went not in. End quote. And that's John 20, verse 5. The author of John now points out that there is a period of time during which one person, Simon Peter, is alone in the tomb because the other disciple chooses to wait outside. Quote, Then cometh Simon Peter following him, and went into the sepulchre, and seeth the linen clothes lie, and the napkin that was about his head, not lying with the linen clothes, but wrapped together in a place by itself. End quote. That's John 20, verse 6 to 7. At this point, not Peter, but Simon Peter arrives and is the first person to actually enter the tomb, and once inside, sees the linen clothes lying and the sounderon. Reference 111. Notice that the reader's attention is drawn to the linen clothes and the sounderon on the three consecutive lines. Notice that the reader's attention is drawn to the linen clothes and the sounderon on three consecutive lines. The sounderon was a funeral cloth used by Romans, not by Jews. Next, the author provides another strange detail that the other disciple eventually does enter, creating a moment when the two men are alone in the tomb. Quote, Then went in also that other disciple, which came first to the sepulchre, and he saw and believed. End quote. John 20, verse 8. At this point, Simon Peter and John returned home. Quote, Then the disciples went away again unto their own home. End quote. John 20 and verse 10. Put it back. Thus in the Gospel of John, hang it up, Josh. Yes, Isaiah.
That's when we're done with that. We get some ice cream.
Yeah, he already told me. Okay. Thus, in the Gospel of John, the sequence of events when Simon Peter and John visit the empty tomb is: first, one individual on the outside of the tomb. Second, one individual on the inside of the tomb. Third, two individuals inside the tomb. Using the timeline established by the relative position of the sun, the sequence of events, the number and location of the angels who are inside or outside the tomb and who greet the visitors in Matthew, Mark, and Luke is as follows. First, one individual on the outside of the tomb, that's found in Matthew. Second, one individual on the inside of the tomb, that's in Mark. And third, two individuals inside the tomb, and that's Luke. Obviously, the sequence of events in John is the same as the sequence of encounters with the angels in the other three Gospels. The timeline, shown by the relative position of the sun, places Simon Peter and the other disciple at the exact time and location and in the same number as the first three encounters with the angels described in the other Gospels. However, there is yet another encounter with angels described in the New Testament. In the Gospel of John, after Simon Peter and John return home, a character named Mary is described as standing outside the tomb weeping. She stoops down and sees two angels inside the tomb. She then turns and encounters Je.sus on the outside of the tomb. Quote, "But Mary stood weeping outside the tomb, and as she wept, stooped to look into the tomb, and she saw two angels in white sitting where the body of Je.sus had lain, one at the head and one at the feet. They said to her, 'Woman, why are you weeping?' She said to them, 'Because they have taken away my Lord, and I do not know where they have laid him.' Saying this, she turned around and saw Je.sus standing." Excuse me. End quote. And that's John 20, verse 11 through 14. If, as I am suggesting, Simon Peter and John are the angels that Je.sus' followers encounter in the visit to the tomb described in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, then who are the angels that Mary encounters in the passage above? The Gospel of Luke records that certain men went to the tomb after having been told by some women of our company that Je.sus' tomb was empty and that they saw angels. Quote, "Moreover, some women of our company amazed us that they were at the tomb early in the morning and did not find his body, and they came back saying that they had seen a vision of angels who said that he was alive. Some of those who were with us went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but they did not see." End quote. Luke 24, verses 22 through 24. The author of Luke, for some reason, includes the detail that the men who go to the tomb do so only after a visit by women who had seen angels. Notice the use of the plural. Only in the final visit to the tomb in Luke does the group encounter more than one angel. Therefore, the visit to the tomb described in Luke could occur only after Simon Peter and John, the angels that the first three groups encountered, have returned home. This sequence of events ties in perfectly with the details described in the Gospel of Luke. Notice that the plural "those" is also used to describe the number of men who go to the tomb. This fact is also essential since the Mary described at the final encounter sees two angels. Further, the Gospel of Luke points out that those men did not see Je.sus, which correlates with the fact that the angels Mary sees are inside the tomb, while Mary meets Je.sus outside the tomb. The author discloses these facts by including the seemingly irrelevant detail that Mary has to look into the tomb to see the angels. Therefore, when the four versions that visit to Je.sus' tomb are combined into one sequence, they create a version that is perfectly logical. As I interpret this combined story, Mary Magdalene in the dark, the actual word in the Gospel of John can also mean religious ignorance, does not find Je.sus' tomb, but Lazarus. The angels who meet the visitors to the tomb are actually Simon Peter and John in the first three encounters and are the men described as visitors to the tomb in the Gospel of Luke. Je.sus does not rise from the dead. His disciples simply delude themselves into believing that he does. Notice that this interpretation makes coherent all the strange details of the race between Simon Peter and the other disciple, as well as their odd behavior while at the tomb. For example, it explains not only why the other disciple does not go into the tomb when he first arrives, but also why he looks into the tomb from the outside. These details enable him to be alone outside the tomb when the first group arrives, and also to be aware that JC has risen, so he is then able to pass this news along to the group who encounters him. It also explains why the Mary in the Gospel of John sees the angels on the inside of the tomb and encounters JC on the outside. All the seemingly irrelevant details included in the 4 versions of the visits to the tomb are necessary to construct the perfectly logical sequence of events in the combined story. This fact that of the 5 versions, only the combined version is logical is another example of what I see as the truth of the New Testament. That is, its authors did not intend the alert reader to take it seriously. Individuals who think logically and have a sense of humor were intended, at least eventually, to understand its comic level. The meaning of the combined story is clear. For example, what if in our day and age 4 groups claim to have seen angels near a cave on the same day in the following sequence? The first group encounters 1 angel outside the cave. The next group encounters 1 angel inside the cave. Then the third group encounters 2 angels inside the cave. Finally, an individual encounters 2 angels inside the cave. Though few would believe such stories, if it were then discovered that other individuals had been either inside or outside the cave at the same time and in the same number in sequence, then such stories of seeing angels would be universally understood to be products of overwrought imaginations. To me, the only possible meaning of the combined story is that the disciples mistake one another for angels and thus pass Mary Magdalene's error on to one another until they all believe that JC is risen from the dead. Now, the only question is whether the combined story was intentionally created. I believe that the authors of the New Testament left us a way to answer this. If the combined story was intentionally created, it was the product of a single individual or group. The 4 Gospels, on the other hand, present themselves as the products of 4 separate authors. The probability that 4 authors could accidentally record the statements of fact necessary to create the combined story can actually be computed. The resulting probability demonstrates that the combined story was not the accidental product of 4 separate authors, but was deliberately created. Okay, so I'm almost getting tongue-tied here. Okay. At first glance, the perfect fit that exists in the combined story may not seem extraordinary. After all, it is made up of only 4 elements, these being the position of the sun, visitors looking or not looking into the tomb, either 0, 1, or 2 characters being present, and the encounter occurring either inside or outside the tomb. However, when one determines the probability of any particular sequence, the length of the sequence can be more important than the unusualness of the individual events within it. I believe that the authors of the New Testament were aware of this principle and use it here as a way of communicating to the educated reader that the combined story is the correct interpretation of the story of JC's resurrection. The truth is communicated using a mathematical rather than a verbal language so that it could not be seen by the ignorant. If Titus had designed the New Testament to satirically disclose that he was JC, he would have wished there to be some way to confirm that its satirical dimension was correct. With their crude system of numbers, the Romans could not do any higher math. However, they were great gamblers and knew odds well. The authors made sure that the odds of the combined story being accidentally created were both able to be calculated and too small for an astute person to take seriously. To clarify how the odds on the combined story can be calculated, I have edited the Four Gospels version of the first visit to Je.sus' tomb into the irreverently comic combined version, in which all the elements in the four stories fit together without contradiction. Quote, hold on, is this his? Hold on. I think this is his right here. He putting it together. Okay. The first day of the week cometh Mary Magdalene early, when it was yet dark, unto the sepulchre, and seeth the stone taken away from the sepulchre. Then she runneth and cometh to Simon Peter and to the other disciple whom Je.sus loved, and said unto them, They have taken away the Lord out of the sepulchre, and we know not where they have laid him. Peter therefore went forth, and that other disciple, and came to the sepulchre. So they ran both together, and the other disciple did outrun Peter, and came first to the sepulchre. And he, stooping down and looking in, saw the linen clothes lying, yet went he not in. So the author of John, end quote. So the author of John has created a moment when there is a single man outside the tomb. In Matthew, there is also such a moment which occurs second in the temporal sequence, when the sun is said to be dawning. Quote, In the end of the Sabbath, as it began to dawn toward the first day of the week, came Mary Magdalene and the other Mary to see the sepulchre. And behold, there was a great earthquake, for the angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled back the stone from the door and was sitting upon it. End quote. That's Matthew 28, 1-2. The Greek word seismos, translated in the passage above as earthquake, is more commonly used to describe simply a shaking or a commotion. Reference 113. Within the satiric interpretation, it simply describes the shaking of the ground caused by the running of the... Sorry about that, y'all. Okay. I'll read that again. The Greek word seismos, translated in the passage above as earthquake, is more commonly used to describe simply a shaking or a commotion. Reference 113. Within the satiric interpretation, it simply describes the shaking of the ground caused by the running of the disciples. Quote, His countenance was like lightning, and his raiment white as snow. And for fear of him the keepers did shake, and became as dead men. And the angel answered and said unto the woman, Fear not ye, for I know that ye seek Je.sus, which was crucified. He is not here, for he is risen, as he said. Come see the place where the Lord lay. And go quickly to tell his disciples that he is risen from the dead. And behold, he goeth before you into Galilee. There shall ye see him. Lo, I have told you. And they departed quickly from the sepulchre with fear and great joy, and did run to bring his disciples word. End quote. Matthew 28, 3-8. The author then states that Simon Peter, not Peter, arrived at the tomb. Quote, Then cometh Simon Peter following him, and went into the sepulchre, and seeth the linen clothes lie. End quote. That's John 20, verse 6-7. Notice that the other disciple does not go into the tomb, but that Simon Peter does, creating a period when there is a single visitor, Simon Peter, in the tomb. Quote, And the napkin that was about his head, not lying with the linen clothes, but wrapped together in a place by itself. End quote. John 20, verse 7. Quote, Very early in the morning on the first day of the week, they came to the tomb when the sun had risen. End quote. That's Mark chapter 16, verse 2. This group of women encounters a single man with Simon Peter, who tells them that Je.sus has arisen. Quote, And entering... Hey, quit shaking them around. Who is that? Bella? Just stop doing that. First of all, are you playing the game, or are you just shaking the pieces around? This group of women encounters a single man, Simon Peter, who tells them that Je.sus is arisen. Quote, And entering into the sepulchre, they saw a young man sitting on the right side, clothed in a long white garment, and they were affrighted. And he said unto them, Be not affrighted. Ye seek Je.sus of Nazareth, which was crucified. He is risen, he is not here. Behold the place where they laid him. But go your way, tell his disciples, and Peter, that he goeth before you into Galilee. There shall ye see him, as he said unto you. End quote. That's Mark 16:5-7. Thus, a single individual in the tomb tells the woman to tell his disciples, and specifically to tell Peter, that Je.sus goeth before you in Galilee. Notice that this is yet another binary chance. If the angel had instructed the woman to tell Simon Peter and not Peter, then the logical linkage between the version in John and the other three would be destroyed. In other words, within the combined version of the story, this individual can only be Simon Peter, and it would be thus contradictory for him to instruct the disciples to give a message to himself. However, it is not contradictory for Simon Peter to give a message to Peter if Simon Peter and Peter are different individuals. The author provides two methods by which a logical reader can learn that Simon Peter and Peter are separate characters. One method the author uses to reveal that Peter and Simon Peter are separate individuals is having the version of the visit to the tomb given in Mark, where the single young man asked a group of women to tell Peter that Je.sus has risen, occur later in the day than the version of the visit to the tomb given in John, in which the first person to go into the tomb is Simon Peter. These facts create the following logical progression. I'm going to read through this progression and then we're going to pause, y'all, because we're at an hour. In the Gospel of John, which begins earliest, Simon Peter is the first person to go into the tomb. The young man in the tomb tells Mary Magdalene to tell Peter that Je.sus has risen, showing that Peter has not been in the tomb yet. Therefore, Simon Peter cannot be Peter. The logical reader will identify the single individual whom the group encounters in the tomb as the only person who has been described as being in the tomb alone, that is, Simon Peter. Moreover, in the Gospel of Luke, the character named Peter does not go into the tomb when he first comes to it, but only looks into it, whereas in the Gospel of John, the character named Simon Peter enters the tomb when he first comes to it. The reader has a choice: either accept a physical impossibility that an individual both went in and did not go into the tomb, or recognize that Peter and Simon Peter are separate characters. As I show below, this is the same method that the author uses to reveal that Mary Magdalene is the name of more than one character. Continuing with the analysis of the combined version, the group that came to anoint Je.sus, having left the other disciple, then enters the tomb. At this point, there are two men inside the tomb. Okay. I'm trying to see where to cut this part off at. Okay. I think I probably should cut it off right here. Alright, but I may have to backtrack not tomorrow, Wednesday when we come back. Just to kind of, okay, let me just do this. Okay. Continuing with the analysis of the combined version, the group that came to anoint Je.sus, having left the other disciple, then enters the tomb. At this point, there are two men inside the tomb. Quote, Then went in also that other disciple which came first to the sepulchre, and he saw and believed. End quote. John 20, verse 8. Another group of women appears and encounters two men inside the tomb, Simon Peter and the other disciple. Quote, Now on the first day of the week, very early in the morning, they and certain other women with them came to the tomb, bringing the spices which they had prepared. And they entered in and found not the body of the Lord Je.sus. And it came to pass, as they were much perplexed thereabout, behold, two men stood by them in shining garments. And as they were afraid and bowed down their faces to the earth, they said unto them, Why seek ye the living among the dead? End quote. Luke 24, 1-5. Je.sus followers who visit the empty tomb are thus deluded and then spread to the other disciples the misunderstanding that Je.sus has risen from the dead. Notice how the author sets up the idea that the visitors enter the tomb. Notice how the author sets up the idea that the visitors into the tomb are irrational by his descriptions of their emotions and behaviors. They are shown as running wildly, affrighted, weeping, perplexed, trembling, and bowing down their faces to the earth. Within the Flavian court, these would have been seen as the behaviors and emotions of Messianic Jews who, from their perspective, were religious madmen who had deluded themselves into believing that the dead could rise. Having finished greeting the three sets of visitors, Simon Peter and John then returned home. Quote, Then the disciples went away again to their homes. End quote. John 20:10. At this point in the combined story, the pattern reverses itself. Instead of characters within the other Gospels encountering angels from the Gospel of John, a character from the Gospel of John encounters angels who are from the Gospel of Luke. Quote, But Mary stood weeping outside the tomb, and as she wept, she stooped to look into the tomb, and saw two angels in white sitting where the body of Je.sus had lain, one at the head and one at the feet. They said to her, Woman, why are you weeping? She said to them, Because they have taken away my Lord, and I do not know where they have laid him. Saying this, she turned round and saw Je.sus standing. End quote. John 20, verse 11-14. The angels, plural, Mary encounters above are logically the men, plural, described in Luke, who go to the tomb after being told that Je.sus is risen by a group of women who had seen angels. Notice below that the men do not see Je.sus, matching the fact that the angels Mary encounters inside the tomb and her encounter with Je.sus is outside the tomb. Quote, Moreover, some women of our company amazed us that they were at the tomb early in the morning and did not find his body, and they came back saying that they had even seen a vision of angels who said that he was alive. Some of those who were with us went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but him they did not see. End quote. And that is Luke 24, 22-24. We're going to pause that right there, y'all, because this next section is going to keep explaining this, but it gets into more, and it's going to start calling out the errors, and it says what it's just going to start pouring out the whole passage as a comedy of errors, as it says, and it's going to start listing possibility. It's going to start listing all of these ones and actually start using math and chain of multiplication to describe the probability, all that stuff. So we're going to pause right here. I think it's a good place to stop. So we'll pick this back up tomorrow. It's getting real good. All right, y'all. Put this here. I hope y'all enjoyed the reading for today. Sorry for the interruptions with the children. You know, it's a normal part of life. You've been here for a while, you know what happens. Don't bother you too much because y'all still be hanging out. Bless the Most High. May He bless you for dealing with our shenanigans. Okay, y'all. Okay, y'all. So we read the rest of Zechariah, chapter 11, 12, 13, and 14. We read Caesar's Messiah, chapter 7, page 187 to 203. Y'all, it is Monday, September the 20th, 2021, day 264 of year 3 of reading through the books of the Law and the Prophets. And of the 3-year consecutive day count, day 933. 933. That's without the Sabbath days or the feast days Sabbaths added in because we rest on those days, right? All right, remember, tomorrow is Sabbath, but it's also the first day of the Feast of Tabernacles, y'all, right? 15th day of the month. See the full moon outside, you always know it's the 15th day of the month. Right? We find that, we understand that by reading through the book of Enoch and the books of the luminaries, while it explains all of those things. And some people say, well, you can't really count on the book of Enoch that was created. I don't know that I would quite say that, because there are a lot of things in the book of Enoch that can be proven by simply going outside, observing, So that's where we got to do our checks and balances at, right? I know some people, they got a lot of words for you. They got a lot of words for you, and they got a lot of scriptures for you. But if we can't line this stuff up, if we can't verify this with our own eyes and stuff out here in nature, because everything that Yahuwah has given us as truth is for us and our children forever, and it can be verified in nature. And it can also be verified in our bodies if you want to start getting that deep. It really can. All right. So, but a lot of things can be verified with nature itself. So, all right, pull this up. Remember, y'all, the blessing is found in Numbers chapter 6, verses 22 through 27. Remember, the first 21 verses is Nazarite vow. Man or woman can take it. And Yahuwah spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Aaron and unto his son, saying, On this wise ye shall bless the children of Israel, saying unto them, Yahuwah kneel before us, presenting gifts, and will guard us with a hedge of protection. Yahuwah will illuminate the wholeness of his being towards us, bringing order, and he will provide us with love, sustenance, and friendship. Yahuwah will lift up his wholeness of being and look upon us, and he will set in place all we need to be whole and complete. And they shall put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them. And if you're not familiar with that version of the blessing in Numbers 6, verses 22 through 27, which is a more accurate rendering of that, you were probably looking for me to say it this way. Well, you can say it either way, but I like the more accurate rendering because it seems more intimate. But this is what you're probably used to hearing. And Yahuwah spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Aaron and unto his son, saying, On this wise ye shall bless the children of Israel, saying unto them, Yahuwah bless us and keep us. Yahuwah make his face to shine upon us and be gracious unto us. Yahuwah lift up his countenance upon us and give us peace. And they shall put my name upon the children of Israel, and I will bless them. Doesn't matter which way you say it. I don't really think so. As long as you understand as long as you really understand it, the intimacy of it. It just depends on really who you're talking to. Some people just need to hear it in the KJV version, and that's okay. If that's where you're at this point in time, that's okay, right? But for those of you who really want to understand the truth of it and the more intimate details of it in its original language, then the first way it's being said gives you just that. You can feel it deep down in your shana. He will come and give us everything that we need to be whole and complete, right? All right, y'all. So with that being said, I'm going and get out of here today. Tootie Baby not down here to end the video, and I'm not going to call her. I'm going to just go ahead and end this myself. I'll see y'all Wednesday. We're not going to be here. Oh. Isaiah's here.
He came from China.
What? He came from China. All right. Tomorrow's the Sabbath. Remember, whatever day the new moon falls on, it's the line leader. I like to call it the line leader of that month cycle, that moon cycle for all the Sabbaths. But it's also the first day of Tabernacles. Also called tents, booths, shelters, or Sukkot. No, she joined. No, that's a lady. She joined a while ago. You just see that up there, right there. All right, y'all. So with that being said, I'll see y'all back here Wednesday morning. Prayerfully, I'll be at 100% full strength. I feel my strength coming back. I'll be at 100 when I see y'all again. So that's Wednesday, 7:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right, y'all. Love y'all. Since Isaiah here, I'm going to go ahead and let him end it today. Tootie Baby going to be mad about this. Bye, y'all.